In the first 9 episodes of this series, we looked at world events as markers for the end times. In the next 3 episodes, we then looked at character traits as markers for the end times. And now we're going to finish this series by looking at political events as markers for the end times. What kind of political situation is going to be in place prior to the return of Christ? Jesus said that for the answer to this question, we need to turn to the book of Daniel. He said, the day is coming when you'll see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Reader, pay attention. Now, what does all this mean? Well, that's what we're looking at in episode 13. Daniel lived around 620 to 538 BC, and this was during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who reigned around 605 to 562 BC. Babylon was the great world power of the time, and it was in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign that he had a very troubling dream about a statue. Daniel came to tell the king what his dream meant. He said, "In your vision, your majesty, you saw standing before you a huge shining statue of a man. It was a frightening sight. The head of the statue was made of fine gold. Its chest and arms were silver, its belly and thighs were bronze, its legs were iron, and its feet were a combination of iron and baked clay. As you watched, a rock was cut from a mountain, but not by human hands. It struck the feet of iron and clay, smashing them to bits. The whole statue was crushed into small pieces of iron, clay, bronze, silver, and gold. Then the wind blew them away without a trace, like chaff on a threshing floor. But the rock that knocked the statue down became a great mountain that covered the whole earth." That was the dream. Now we will tell the king what it means. "Your majesty, you are the greatest of kings. The God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and honor. He has made you the ruler over all the inhabited world and has even put the wild animals and birds under your control. You are the head of gold. But after your kingdom comes to an end, another kingdom inferior to yours will rise to take your place. After that kingdom has fallen, yet a third kingdom, represented by bronze, will rise to rule the world. Following that kingdom, there will be a fourth one as strong as iron. That kingdom will smash and crush all previous empires, just as iron smashes and crushes everything it strikes. The feet and toes you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided. Like iron mixed with clay, it will have some of the strength of iron, but while some parts of it will be as strong as iron, other parts will be as weak as clay. This mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron and clay do not mix. During the reigns of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed or conquered. It will crush all these kingdoms into nothingness, and it will stand forever." That is the meaning of the rock cut from the mountain, though not by human hands, that crushed to pieces the statue of iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. The great God was showing the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and its meaning is certain. So Daniel says that there would arise 4 major kingdoms. After the head, which represents Babylon, it's generally agreed that the chest represents Medo-Persia, the belly and thighs represent Greece, and the legs represent the Roman Empire. But the key empire for this episode is simply the last one, represented by iron and baked clay, the feet of the statue. It's this empire that will be in existence when Jesus returns. Daniel says that while this kingdom is still in existence, the God of heaven will throw a rock at the feet. The rock in this image represents Jesus Christ, of course, and he says that Jesus will crush to pieces the 4th kingdom and indeed all attempts at human empire. The rock itself will then turn into a mountain that covers the whole earth, and this signifies the fact that Jesus himself will then rule over the entire planet. So what do we know about this end-time kingdom then from this image of the feet of iron and baked clay? Well, the mix of iron and clay means that the nations of the world will be trying to form closer bonds with each other in the last days through what Daniel calls intermarriage. They will be trying to come together as one. Secondly, the iron and clay also tells us that some of these nations will be significantly more powerful than others. The powerful nations, of course, are the iron, and the weaker nations are the clay. And it's for this reason that they'll have a great deal of difficulty in merging with each other. Indeed, it's only after a lot of persistence that they're going to come up with a system that only kind of works. The 10 toes on the feet represent the fact that at the very end of time, the world will be divided up into 10 regions with 10 rulers. So effectively, what we're talking about is the establishment of a global system of governance. We're going to see a one world order. So again, these are the three political signs that we're looking for in this episode. We're looking for nations trying to form ever closer ties with each other. We're looking for them to struggle to do it because some are significantly more powerful than others. And we're looking for the formation of a one world government, dividing the planet into 10 regions. The question is there any evidence of any of this happening in our world today? Well, let's take a look at each one of these in turn to find out. The long-term trend of world history is absolutely towards ever closer union, and my own country of Scotland is a perfect case study. Around 2,000 years ago, this area of land wasn't known as Scotland at all, and was only sparsely populated by various family tribes that we call clans. Each clan had a chief who would build a castle and then use it as a power base to control the land immediately surrounding, which is why there are now hundreds and hundreds of castles dotted around the country. The clans feuded with each other constantly, trying to expand their territories at each other's expense, stealing each other's livestock, attacking each other's fortresses, and generally jostling for regional power. And that continued quite consistently for hundreds of years until an external existential threat arose from the neighbours to the south, England. If you've seen Braveheart, then you'll have a rough idea of this story. King Edward I tried to conquer Scotland, and that forced the tribal clans who had previously been at war with each other to come together to confront the larger enemy as one.
Unite us! Unite the clans!
You may also remember from the ending of that movie how Robert the Bruce eventually did manage to unite the clans, how he led them to victory at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, and it's from that time that the idea of Scottish national identity really began to develop. Scotland was at war with England on and off for roughly the next 300 years. However, when the English Queen Elizabeth I died without an heir, it was the Scottish King James VI who was asked to move south to England to rule over both England and Scotland from London. With a king now in common, it was from this moment that Scotland and England slowly ceased to think of themselves as being entirely different to each other, until eventually, in 1707, the Act of the Union was signed, officially joining Scotland and England together and forming the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Over the centuries, the shared sense of Britishness developed, and instead of fighting each other, Scots and Englishmen were now fighting side by side against existential threats from Europe. Wars in Europe eventually led to the two world wars, of course, and this led to a vision to join all of Europe together into a federal superstate called the European Union. The vision for the EU was ever closer union, and indeed, it is now as a centralised parliament, currency, and legal system. So you see the way that history's been moving. First, small family clans united to form the nation of Scotland, then Scotland united with England to form the United Kingdom, then the United Kingdom joined with other nations in Europe to form the European Union. The flow of history is that power is becoming increasingly centralised over time and falling into the hands of fewer and fewer people. 2,000 years ago, there were hundreds of regional clan chiefs reigning over tiny pockets of land. But today, there are very few rulers reigning over entire kingdoms and now even continents. With this in mind, it seems like it's only a matter of time before this natural flow of history brings us to a point where humanity attempts to join the whole planet together under a global union, a global system of governance. The European Union itself is a great case study on how strong nations, or iron nations, struggle to merge with weaker clay nations. Strong European nations like Germany, and also France to an extent, have had a really tough time staying on good terms with the weaker EU nations like Greece and Italy. For example, we've seen Greece defaulting on loans and threatening to go bankrupt. Knowing that this would pull down the entire European economy, the stronger nations have needed to step in and bail them out. But these bailouts have come with conditions attached, and that's caused resentment in Greece and Italy. These nations don't want Germany interfering in their national autonomy, and so we've seen riots and an anti-EU backlash in recent years. In fact, the UK has famously voted to leave the EU altogether due to the threat to British sovereignty and the disadvantages of being in union with these weaker nations. So the struggle is definitely there. With just this one European example in mind, we can see that yes, nations are trying to intermarry, and yes, they are struggling to hold together. Obviously, if a one world system of governance was attempted, these problems would be even more pronounced, as the various nations with their different cultures and economic strengths would struggle to get what they each want out of the system. Daniel says that despite all of this struggle, some semblance of one world government will eventually come to pass, erasing previous national boundaries and instead dividing the world into just 10 regions. There will be a new world order. And the truth is, the political elite have been talking about the need for a one world order for a long time now. The desire for this already exists.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law. Such is a world worthy of our struggle and worthy of our children's future.
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world. When really a new world order can be created, it's a great opportunity.
The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges for the future.
Your class has an incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
But in a globalized economy, we are going to have to take global responsibilities, and there is going to have to be some semblance of global governance.
2009 is also the first year of global governance, with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis.
On a world level, I think it's absolutely necessary that we go in the direction of a network of regional organizations. We have the European Union in Europe. Maybe tomorrow in Asia they shall create an Asian currency unit, like we have the Economic and Monetary Union in Europe. There is certainly also an enormous intense cooperation, more and more in Latin America. There are the Arab countries. So I see a world order in the future with a multipolar world order, where you see a few big regional subcontinental organizations more important. So the network of these organizations, that is maybe the future for this world.
So you can see the politicians are already talking about the need to meet global challenges with global governance. And many are desperate to see this become a reality as quickly as possible. That last clip there was especially intriguing because Guy Verhofstadt was envisaging the exact 10-region model as prophesied by Daniel. He talked about Europe being one block, Asia being another block, Latin America being another block, and he said that he'd like to see a world where all of these blocks are joined together in a single network. So everything that Daniel prophesied, the move towards integration, the struggle to make it happen, and the desire for a 10-region one-world government is slowly starting to come together. We can see this happening in the world today. Just one last point before we wrap up this episode, and it pertains to what would need to happen in order to trigger one world government. Throughout history, there have only really been two main triggers to cause deeper political integration. Either an existential threat occurs, or there's some kind of economic collapse. The reason that Scottish clans, remember, had to join together as one was because they faced an existential threat from England. The reason that Scotland then joined with England was partly because of Scottish economic collapse and partly because of existential threats from mainland Europe. The reason that Europe came together to form the EU was, of course, because World War II nearly decimated the whole continent and the economies, and to compete with emerging global markets. It's existential threats and economic collapses that tend to trigger these jumps towards closer union. See, as long as the world can muddle along in its present state, it probably will do. Even with the ups and downs, the recessions, the credit crunches, the skirmishes, it will probably just muddle along. What would need to happen for the world to consider completely resetting the whole political landscape is probably either going to be an existential threat, something like World War III perhaps, or some huge global financial meltdown. Either the world economy will have to fail, or there will be some huge existential threat to the world. In fact, you may have noticed the politicians earlier tending to refer to a new world order coming out of some kind of difficulty or problem, and that indeed being an opportunity to establish the new world order.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster.
Global governance with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis.
The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
Has Daniel's prophecy come true? Not yet. We don't have a one world order yet. However, what I hope I've done in this episode is show that history is unmistakably flowing in that direction. The desire for it's there, and it's only a matter of time before this happens.